I'm Sherry Kendall, and welcome to Hometown Salutes. Today I have a special guest, Fayette County veteran Darrick Davis. Welcome, Darrick, to the show.
Thank you.
So tell us a little bit about yourself. What branch of service, and did you enlist or were you drafted?
No, the draft was not in force when I went in. I volunteered, selective service, right out of college. So
after high school, you went to college?
Yes.
Before you decided to join the service?
Yes.
So did you come from a military family?
My father was in the Army. My father-in-law was Navy, and then several of my father's uncles served in all branches, Marines, Navy, Coast Guard, Marines. So my father came from a very wide background as far as the military goes in our family.
Okay. But you didn't join the Army? You joined the Air Force?
Yeah, my father actually went to the recruiting station with a buddy of his, and they were going to join the Air Force. When he got there, the Air Force recruiter wasn't there, and his buddy said, if you were a real man, you'd join with whoever was here. And of course, the Army recruiter was there. They went in, they joined, and he left the next day for boot camp. My father served 3 years, got out just before Korea, the Korean conflict, and was not a satisfying experience for him. And so when I mentioned going into the military myself at the end of my college career, he was really resistant to the idea. And so I did talk to an Army recruiter, but then I chased down the Air Force recruiter. I talked to the Marines, the Navy. I did a lot of research, and I looked at their missions, and the Air Force had, particularly what I was looking for was more of a technical support. A lot of the career fields translated more readily into civilian life. And the Air Force also has what they call the community college of the Air Force. So everything you do in the Air Force, most of the militaries have this as well, but they have their own college, and you can you get transcripts and everything. So that added to my resume when I got out of the service.
Okay. So were your parents then supportive of you going into the Air Force?
Yeah, actually, my father, I was surprised how proud my father was when I went in, which excited me. I'm an only child, and so, like most kids, you look for the approval of your parents. My father was a stern man, to say the least, but he was very proud to see me in the military, and my father was very historically minded. He liked going to military museums. He studied military history, World War II, Civil War, all that. So the fact that his son carried on that military tradition, and I think in a branch that he really wanted to get into, was exciting to him. So yeah, I think he was very proud. My mom was she was extremely proud. She loved seeing my uniform. I'd come home, we'd go to church, I'd put my blues on, and she just loved walking in with me. So.
And how many years were you in the service?
Just about 10 years total. So, yes.
That's awesome. So basic training, where did you do basic training at?
Lackland Air Force Base is the home to all Air Force basic trainings at San Antonio, Texas.
Okay.
From there, I went to Denver, Colorado for tech school at Lowry Air Force Base, and studied to be what they call a PIF. They call them PIF rats, photo processors. So we processed, I learned how to process 5-inch and 10-inch gun film. And gun film, by that, I mean the aircraft that we took care of had cameras in the front and in the belly of the aircraft, and as they flew low-level, high-speed aircraft over targets, they would take pictures instead of targets. So their targets, they would shoot film instead of bullets. They would bring that back to us. We would rapidly process the film and then get it to the intel guys to be able to find the targets.
Oh, wow. So was that your specialized training then?
Yes.
That part? Okay.
Yes.
So what exactly did your job entail then? Like,
my job was they would when the aircraft would land, they had guys on the airfield that would download the canisters into they'd take them out of their boxes. They'd bring them to us. We would go into the darkroom, open the boxes up, stick them on. It was kind of like a 1-hour photo shop, only for a larger size film. We had these, what they called Versamats. And we just put the reel of film on there, and it would run the film through developer and fixer and come out the other side, and then we'd put it on another reel, roll it back up, and then as soon as it was dried, heat dried and done, we'd take it out and give it to the Intel guys, and then the Intel guys would take it to their shop, and then they would look for the targets.
Wow.
So, and we'd have, like I said, we had 5-inch and 10-inch film to do that on. Now, all of that technology has been superseded, obviously, by the digital drone age, high-def film, satellites. That career field no longer exists. So I guess I'm an antique at that.
You're telling your age now.
Yes. So, but they did this in Vietnam. A lot of reconnaissance film in Vietnam. A lot of war stories came from some of my supervisors who had served in Vietnam during that age. They had pictures of PIF vans that had bullet holes through them, where the bases were overrun or attacked by the Viet Cong and shot up. Some of the guys lost their lives because you're in that van. The vans were not armored at all. They were paper thin, metallic.
They were
vans.
not armored?
No.
I'm surprised about that.
No. A lot of military, very little military equipment is actually armored up, as you'd call. So yeah, a lot of guys lost their lives being shot up in the PIF vans. And these were stories that were relayed to me by guys who had been there. I never experienced any kind of combat situation. My job was in the Air Force. My job is largely support. So unlike in the Air Force, the other career field or the other branches of the service, they send the enlisted guys to the front to work. In the Air Force, we put our pilots in the aircraft. They're the ones that go to the front. We're all support. There's only 2 career fields that do forward. Any kind of forward air combat. That's our PJs, which is, like I said, take a Navy SEAL and an EMT and put them together and give them a helicopter, and they would go out behind the lines and rescue military men that were caught behind the lines that were injured. And then we had our forward air controllers who basically went in forward to call in airstrikes, and they were trained to, in escape and evasion and all the jungle stealth techniques. So the Air Force was largely support, and we support not only just the Air Force and the pilots, but we support all of the other forces. So we're the taxi for the military. We fly just about anybody: Air Force, Army, Marines. Whatever's needed. I've worked I cross-trained into logistics, so loading aircraft. I've loaded C-5s, which are giant, enormous aircraft that lift. They open up at both ends, and you can drive equipment in, strap down equipment. I've flown in Air Force 141s on TDYs to Key West Air Station, Nellis Air Force Base for recce reconnaissance practices, so I mean it was very exciting. I got to spend a lot of time and see a lot of stuff, even just stateside. That was just very entertaining.
So were you on stateside your whole career?
Yes.
Okay.
I was stationed at Bergstrom Air Force Base for the first half of my career, and then Wright-Patterson Air Force Base for the second half of the career. One of my favorite TDYs was to Key West Naval Air Station, which was, of course, out on the Keys of Florida. Beautiful beaches. We got a lot of time to spend, relaxing. But I was the logistics officer for the squadron at the time, and they had an accident, which was really interesting. So it's a Navy base, and the RF-4, which is a naval aircraft, has what they call a tail hook. The hook drops and catches the aircraft and brings it to a stop. The Air Force Base, they're also designed as a twin-engine, high-speed, low-level aircraft. So they would get their engines up to full capacity, and then they would take off. And so they don't need a lot of runway, and they would just lift off. But they're very, very heavy. So when they land, they take that tail hook to stop them. One of our aircraft was on takeoff. He was at full speed. At the end of the runway, he got hit by a seagull. At the last second, he took the second tail hook and pulled the chain. So we're talking a cable that's probably that big around, chain links that are this big around. He pulled the entire thing out, broke it, sent those chain links flying 2 miles in all directions.
Oh.
He got stopped at the very end of the runway, and on Key West, if you're not on concrete, you're on sand. The aircraft landed, and the front aircraft gear just sank into the sand, broke off, and it looked like a giant $1 million lawn dart, and the pilot was like this.
No way.
When they pulled him out. Yeah. It was comical and frightening all at the same time. So he was okay. We're happy. Yeah, it was not a exciting experience. We actually got the aircraft back. The aircraft mechanics there on Key West had a static air display of an RF-4. They took the gear off of it and put it on ours, and we flew it back.
Oh wow.
So yeah, that was fun. So
yeah.
But, yeah.
So like in basic training, what's a day in basic training like? I mean,
Air Force basic training is unlike a lot of, you see pictures of Army basic training, Marine basic training, guys with their guns and they're crawling through the mud.
Right.
We don't do that. We go to class.
That's what I wondered.
Lots and lots of class because we're all support. So it's mostly an administrative slant. We attend a lot of classes. Their focus is piling as much on us, and basically giving us more tasks than we can actually complete in a day. They want to see us react under pressure.
Mentally challenge you.
It's a mental challenge. It's not really a physical challenge. PT in the Air Force is not a real. I mean, high school gym class is probably about the equivalent. We did jumping jacks, we ran the mile, we did leg lifts, squats, that kind of, but that would last for about 45 minutes, and then we back to, whatever it is, whatever tasks we do, cleaning the bunks, doing our paperwork, homework. There was a million tasks we were given, and the idea was, how would we prioritize all these tasks? And there were dozens of inspections. They would come in constantly and gig what they call gig us on anything. It was just, they were on us constantly because they wanted us under constant supervisory pressure to see how we would react. And a lot of it was character too, because there were guys who would try to hide, and then there are guys that would just simply stand up and say, yeah, that was my fault, that I took that. And that's, that's what they were looking for. They were looking for integrity. They were looking for being able to prioritize under pressure, being able to accomplish the task, the mission. The mission was preemptive. Whatever the mission was, that's what they wanted to see you accomplish. And if you dropped something in lieu of getting the mission done, you may still get a gig, but that's what they're looking for. They wanted to look to see how you would react under that kind of pressure.
Okay. So is there anything memorable about basic training? Any kind of a funny story that you'd want to share with us?
There was just one incident. There was a flight behind us. And again, they were looking for character. There were guys that would sneak in food or hide cookies or different things, everybody, there's always the few guys that try to get around the rules. Well, apparently the flight behind us, they were downstairs, had hidden a headphone set and earphones with a bunch of tapes. They were listening to music at night, and they got a surprise inspection, and one of their recruiters found it. Their DIs, drill instructors, found it. Technical instructors, whereas ours were TIs. Well, the next thing you know, they're in our office, and they're like, "We need 3 guys right now." Okay, so whoever was closest to the door, and I was, and we went down there, and they said, "You stand by this door, you stand by this door, you stand by this door." And okay, and then there was probably 5 TIs going through there, and they were screaming and yelling and throwing stuff. Now, they did that to us on a general basis, just, but none of our guys ever broke the rules to that extent. These poor guys, they recycled them back probably 4 weeks, started them over. And they found it in the ceiling, so they tore all their ceiling apart. They tore all their bunks apart. I mean, they laid waste. And they told us we weren't to leave until they finished everything. And so we stood there all day watching these poor guys. It was a true lesson in we're almost there. Don't screw up.
Yeah.
So,
exactly.
But that's the one thing I remember the most. Guys that get gigged from time to time. I did get in trouble at one point. They call a reporting statement, and if you didn't report, you got in trouble. The reporting statement was Airman Davis reports as ordered, and then you would say what you needed to say. And I walked up to one of the TIs, and I said something without the reporting statement. And the TI behind me said, "What's the matter with you?" And just got in my face. And so I had to spend the next 15 minutes reporting to the wall. I was standing like this, reporting. Airman Davis reports as ordered, sir. Airman Davis reports as ordered, sir. So this went on. Airmen walking by me, snickering,
Yeah, it's not fun.
No, it's not fun. But we survived.
So what is a typical day? Like, what kind of hours? Like, how does that work?
4 o'clock in the morning, 3:30 in the morning, we would fall out for inspection. We'd march. We'd go to breakfast, and then we'd come back and we'd march some more, and then they would take us to different areas on the base for different tasks. Then we'd go to class. We'd come back, lunch. More class, come back, dinner, more class, and we were in class basically all day, and then in the evenings we would have cleaning the barracks, policing the outside of the building. If they had a hole they needed dug, that's just whatever. I did KP one day, one afternoon. I mean, it was just they would just assign us different tasks, and then there was parades, and we did a couple of those. We'd go out and we'd dress all up, and we'd go out to the field, and we would march up and down the field, and we'd come back, and then and it was a constant change in and out of your blues, change back into your skivvies, change into this, change into your uniform, fatigues, back and forth. So it was they would keep us running all the time. I went from there to Lowry Air Force Base, Colorado, which was beautiful, up in the mountains, you can imagine. For tech school, we went to the Garden of the Gods. It was just again a lot of classes. Basically, their focus there was just school. We didn't have a lot of tasks. I mean, we were given things that we needed to do. And then from there, my first duty station was back to Texas at Bergstrom Air Force Base. And that's
you went back to Texas then?
Yeah.
Okay.
From Texas, I became sort of basic training, tech school, photo processor, logistics officer, and then I got into graphics, which is what I did in college. I was an artist. From there, my wife and I went from there to Wright-Patterson Air Force Base, to the National Air Intelligence Center, which used to be called FTD, Foreign Technology Division. As we spoke before, the building is famous for where they brought the object they found at Roswell, New Mexico in 1947. The Air Force also did an investigation into unidentified flying objects called Project Blue Book. And while I was there, I actually got to meet some of the engineers and scientists that worked on the project. So I think there was like 90-some incidents that they investigated. They found explanations for all of them except for 2. But my time at the National Air Intelligence Center was fascinating. I got, of course, all classified. It was a vault inside a vault. And it was just a really interesting time. Unfortunately, I'm not allowed to share most of it with you, but I got to see a lot of really interesting stuff, and a lot of testing goes on at Wright-Patterson. Wright-Patterson has, they do an enormous amount of scientific exploration and stuff there. It's also, of course, the birthplace of the Wright brothers. Aircraft. They've actually uncovered, they have archaeologists that go around the base, and every time they dig something up, Wright-Patterson's been there for a long, long time, so there's a lot of buildings. They found a barn, a shed, that belonged to the Wright brothers, where they did some of their initial experimentation, so that was fascinating. And of course, you had the Air Force Museum right next door.
Right.
And I lived right behind it, so we, 4th of July, I got to see the fireworks every year.
So you're right there. You lived right on base.
Yes. Most of my kids were born there. Three out of the 4 of my children were born there. Danny, who's the oldest, Sarah, my next oldest, Nathan, and Caleb, and both my boys followed me into the military. They're both. Nathan is Army, Caleb is Coast Guards, and then my son-in-law, who's married to my oldest daughter, is also Air Force. So we have a very strong military family.
That's awesome. And you married your wife Penny. I went to school with Penny.
Yes.
So she traveled with you the whole time that you had signed up.
Yeah. We got married right after basic training. We got married I got to leave in conjunction with my next duty station. So we came home, got married, and off to Texas we went.
Wow.
Which is 2 young married couples, and we're 24 hours away from drive from our family. Was quite a change for us.
Right.
So
what are some life lessons you learned for your time being in the military? I mean, is that something that you'd suggest to?
Oh yeah. I mean, I went to college. But even after I got out of college, I was pretty clueless as to what I wanted to do with my life. I just had no direction. I went into the military, and as I said, I went. I had several different career fields. I was logistics. I was photo processing, graphics. When I got to Wright-Patterson, I ran printing presses, microfiche, and then I got back into graphics. And then the Air Force decided, in its infinite wisdom, to combine graphics with audio-video and put them together. There was a staff sergeant there at the time who was running the audio video. He and I basically just switched jobs. I learned AV, he learned graphics. So I got interested in electronics when I did that. And in my time there, I upgraded all the current conference rooms were really antiquated. They still had hand slides and overhead projectors, and it's just a lot of it was just very old equipment. And so I spent I had a $1 million account and spent a lot of money, a lot of taxpayer money, upgrading all their equipment, and in doing that got really interested in audio and video, and learned a lot about projection systems. And they sent me to classes to learn different types of projection and audio systems, and engineering classes, electrical engineering classes, and was incredibly just exciting. I got very excited about electronics. So therefore, when I got out, one of my first real jobs was with a company called Allied Telecom out of Richmond, Indiana, and I pursued electronics. Even to this day now, I work for the state of Indiana as a signal technician, which is all electronics. It's basically working on the stoplights for the state, and which are far more complicated than just changing a light from red to green to yellow back to,
Right.
There's a lot of all the signals talk to each other through cellular modems. There's fiber optics. There's computer control systems, and all of what I learned in the Air Force, I apply to what I do now, and it gave me a real leg up in what I do, and I've thoroughly enjoyed it. And yes, I would recommend the military to anybody that is looking to find their way, find a career, find a direction in their life if they don't already have one.
Right.
My boys, unlike me, where I just kind of joined the military looking for a direction, my boys had more of a plan laid out when they went in. Caleb, of course, is just getting out of the Coast Guard, and Nathan is finishing up his military Army Guard career. Nathan is now pursuing a career in law enforcement with the Rushville PD, and I'm very proud of both my boys. Caleb is getting out, and he's pursuing also a law enforcement career, and I couldn't be prouder of both of them. My son-in-law, who's still in the Air Force, is a staff sergeant, and he is aircraft mechanic. Did a lot of stuff with the life support systems on the aircraft, and has been very successful at that. And so, I couldn't be prouder of all my boys and their careers, and they've been as much of an inspiration to me as hopefully I have been to them.
That's awesome. So do you go back to Wright-Patterson any?
I did early on. In fact, the PIF. You saw the Facebook page, the PIF page.
Yes.
They're having a reunion, a PIF reunion in Dayton, and I'm looking to maybe go to that this year. So it'll be guys that were in the Air Force doing what I did from all over the country, coming to Wright-Patterson Air Force Base to talk about the old days of running the PIFs, and a lot of the PIFs were stationed overseas at Cadena and England and Italy. So it was just really the making the friends and some of the guys that I still talk to from time to time online are just, it's really a brotherhood, and it's really a really good experience. I'm proud of my service. I didn't, like I said, I didn't do any combat, but I know that what I did was important. It was real world, and the information and stuff that I helped disseminate hopefully saved lives, so I'm proud of that fact.
That's awesome. So you had some military patches that we have a picture of.
Yes. My dad was a patch collector, so I've got tons of ones that I served under, and a lot of those patches you'll see the 91st TRS, which is the Tactical Reconnaissance Group. They were called the Demon Chasers. That's the night chasing the devil. They originally was a World War II or World War I bomber squadron where they flew biplanes and threw grenades out at the enemy. It's still in service today. I'm not sure what they do, but it's the patches. There's Tactical Reconnaissance Wing, which is the wing that I was attached to, and then there's several other patches there that were air commands and such. So,
yeah,
but
that's neat. And then you said you had your dad's collection as well, so
there's about
really
4 binders of patches.
Wow.
He's got from Vietnam all the way to present day, and I've got a few patches from my boys now that I've added to that collection from the Coast Guard and the Army. So
that's really neat.
Yeah.
Well, Darrick, I want to thank you for sharing with us your story. I want to thank you for your service and your sacrifice. I mean, it's awesome that you came to share that with us.
Thank you.
Thank you very much for joining us for this episode, and be sure to tune in next month when we will have Darrick's son Caleb, United States Coast Guard.